10.69 miles, 8 minutes, 17 seconds per mile. Just trying to take it easy today. It was my first longer run since the marathon. I'm about a week out of the marathon, at least at the time of this run. By the time you watch this video, it'll be like a week and a couple of days. But this particular run was a week out and feeling relatively okay. Today I want to talk about kind of recovering from the marathon and what's kind of next for the rest of 2018, because a lot's changed with how I did at the Chicago Marathon. Originally, I was thinking that the Chicago Marathon would be kind of a tune-up, kind of a confidence booster going into Indianapolis, but with the way things worked out, that marathon exceeded anything that I could have hoped to have achieved in Indianapolis and then some. And so that's going to change, but also I'm going to talk about how I'm going to get from, I thought 4 weeks would be plenty of time in between marathons, but I'm not sure that it's quite enough. It might be too much or not even enough. So 2 days after the marathon, I went for a little bit of a shakeout run, or maybe it was 3 days along the beach in Puerto Rico. The day before that, I had just done a whole bunch of walking around just to keep the legs moving and also exploring a new place. But then after that beach run, after that, I did a couple of days of 6 mile runs, my usual kind of 10K route back in Chicago. Yesterday, I did an 8.5 mile run. That was felt really good, so I was really surprised at that. And today, I went for a little bit of a longer run, a little bit slower, just to get the distance in and see how I felt there. Definitely on the way back from this run, I started feeling some spots in my legs and my quads really is where most of it is, where I started feeling a little bit tight. So around mile 7, 8, as I was trying to, run back after a longer run and still keep moving quickly, the legs starting to feel a little bit tight. Not tight from like a muscle tightness kind of way, but tight in this kind of, not hurts, but this doesn't feel right kind of way. So a little bit different. So I pulled back on the pace a little bit just so I could get the miles. The other thing that's starting to bother me is something that was a little bit of a nagging injury getting into the taper. I did a 2-week taper, and on the one hand it felt way too long, and the other hand it was just right. Because as I was getting to the taper, there was something underneath my right foot. So if this is the pad of my right foot, like right in the center, right around here, depending on the shoe, I think, sometimes I'll get like kind of a sharp pain in there, almost like not a pain like a nerve, it's kind of like a nerve pain. It doesn't hurt like a muscle pain. And so it's like I'm stepping on something sharp but wide in a way. So it's pointed but over a little bit of a diffuse area, kind of all under like the middle toe, I think. And so it sometimes would bother me in running in the Zoomfly SPs. I think that's where it may have started from. And a lot of times if I would just kind of take a break along a run and shoot like a running in front of the camera and back, by then it would just kind of go away, and I tried to ignore it and not make too big of a deal of it. Once I switched to the Zoomfly Flyknits, a lot of that went away, and so I was able to have a really good Chicago half marathon race, even though that pain had kind of started to be there. And it didn't bother me at all in the taper or in the days leading up to the marathon. And in the marathon, running in the Vaporflies, it wasn't even a concern. I thought about it just to see if it was there. It wasn't there at all. So that was very reassuring. And then even in the week after the marathon, taking it very easy, running either barefoot or in the Epic Reacts or in the Pegasus Shields, definitely didn't feel it there either. Until this run, I started to feel it. Nothing that made me have to stop, but I definitely felt the pain, and I could feel my stride, like my foot strike, altering a little bit to kind of favor it and not hit that so much. And so something that I need to manage as I go forward into the marathon. I'm thinking about trying to gear back up, because I basically have 1 more week of mileage again or something before I get to a 2-week taper for Indianapolis. And so I think that maybe I will have a little bit less than a 2-week taper for Indianapolis, because my ramp up won't be so hard. And so I'm gonna see how that feels, but I'm also have to keep an eye on my foot. I think it's basically just an overuse injury, and I'm gonna run in some slower paces and try to take things a little bit easier while still keeping mileage in, so I can keep that base maintained to keep that overall, I guess, aerobic strength up there. And so that's kind of my plan going into Indianapolis. In terms of times, I'm split. I kind of have two options going there. One, I'm running with my running buddy, and he's been plagued by his own injuries all of most of 2018, although he did have a massive PR at the Chicago Half Marathon that we ran together. And so I'm thinking that he did so well at that half marathon that I think we can do pretty well at the half marathon for him. So originally, I think his goal was to come in at 3:30. I think that we can push him if we run together. Not that he needs me, but I think that he can run 3:25. So I'm really thinking that we should run that together to just have that race together, since we haven't done a lot of running or racing together this year. So 3:25 I think is probably going to be the goal, somewhere in there, at least line up with a 3:25 pace group if there is one in Indianapolis. I'm not sure what the pacing situation is going to be. The other option is if we do split up, I was reading about the Chicago Marathon for next year, and the guaranteed entry time for men in my age group is 3 hours and 15 minutes. I'd have to run 3 minutes faster even than the incredible PR for me that I had at Chicago, but it seems doable if I line up with a 3:15 pace group, which I think that there will be a 3:15 pace group there. And so that's something to think about. I'm still not anywhere close to qualifying for Boston, so that's not like a thing that's in the mix for 2018. The question is, should I shoot for the 3:15 and run, and then me and my running buddy have to split up, or do we run together and shoot for 3:25? I'm thinking that we run together, stick together, shoot for 3:25. Make sure that even though he's had a little bit of a setback with injuries this year, we stay relatively close. I think that's very important that we do that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least going forward for November, and then going from November into December. Then we'll be hitting like Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holidays and things like that. My next race after that won't be until the end of January, which will be the Winter Half Marathon. That's along the lake in Chicago. For that, that one's tough because it's along the lake and it's on the lakefront trail. There's tons of wind. The last 2 years, we've been very, very lucky with very mild temperatures and not a lot of wind. And so I've done pretty good, but I just have a feeling it's going to be miserably cold and windy and slushy. So I'm not going to set out kind of like a time goal for that one. Although I am generally looking for early 2019 to find a half marathon where I can get to 1:30. And so currently my PR is 1:34.50 something. So I'm just barely a 1:34 half marathoner. And so I think that I can really push that and get to 1:30. And so that's kind of like my goal for there. So those are my goals kind of for the half, 1:30, and then for the marathon 3:15. When those will be, I'm not sure. It's probably not going to be in 2018, but that's kind of where I'm looking forward. In the meantime, in between there, after the Monumental Marathon in early November, at that point, I may still do some longer interval runs. The times have to be dialed back a little bit, keeping in mind that I'll be wearing, thicker upper layers just to keep me warm, and I won't be able to run as quickly. But I don't think I'll be doing a lot of track work, just because getting on a track is a little bit harder in the winter time. And I'll be focusing, I won't be taking off, but I'll be focusing on just getting in miles, probably dialing it back to like 40 miles a week or so if I can manage that, trying to stay off the treadmill as much as possible. So those are my thoughts for recovering now in terms of the marathon and looking forward and reloading for the next one. And then even further on towards the end of 2018. As we hit the end of 2018, I'll do a recap on some of my 2018 running goals. So there'll be another wrap-up video along those lines, and I talk more specifically about other 2019 goals as we get to like December. But for now, I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew kind of what I was thinking in my mind in terms of where we go from here and what's coming up next. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear about what you guys are planning for the rest of the year. And if you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you guys down there. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?